And, you know, it's all very well and good me talking about the content that we want to release next year, but, you know, I want to be here in 10 years' time. I want to be here in 20 years' time, you know. I might look a bit old then, a few scars on my face maybe from a bit too much PKing, but I really want to be here, you know. So what I'm going to tell you about now is kind of what I really want to do next year, but that's not, we're not limiting ourselves to just thinking about next year. We're really thinking to the future and how we can make sure we've still got this game, you know, really popular and with such a fantastic community just like you, just even bigger, because we, you know, we all want to see more players in the game. We all want to see the game that we love go on for ever and ever. So I wanted to share that with you. So just before we go on to 2012, this is kind of like my vision for the future. This is what I would really like to do to the game. Now, lead designers come up with a whole load of really bold ideas. And sometimes the technical team will come along and say, do you know what, that's not technically possible to do that. I mean, you know, flying around in the air or something like that, I'm not sure if we can really do something like that. Or we might decide to do different projects. You know, I'm one of these creative people who will wake up the next day and think, oh, those ideas I just come up with, they're good, but they're much better. These new ideas that I've just woken up with are much better, you know? So the stuff I'm going to talk about now is kind of like a little window into my mind, I guess. A little window just so you can understand the kind of ideas that we want to develop, or I want to develop as a lead designer. So a bit of a disclaimer there. Some of these we're definitely working on, and you'll see some screenshots, and you'll see some really interesting stuff. And at the end, I'm going to tell you about behind the scenes November, so you're going to have a little bit of a sneak preview of the stuff we've got planned for next month. And I might even talk a little bit about the Star Quest that we've got for the beginning of next year. But anyway, I won't ruin it too much. We'll start off with some cool slides. I had the pleasure of working with a bunch of our concept artists for the last few weeks, just talking to them about the kind of crazy ideas that I've got. The images that you're going to see on the screen, they're our first kind of concepts of what these things are going to look like. But I hope that you're as excited about them as I am. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the RuneScape Olympics. Oh, maybe I'll show you this slide here first. Not particularly Olympic-y, but maybe this next slide will be. There you go. So, on the screen there, you can see an ogre, or maybe a troll, we're not quite sure. He is in a shot put contest. And his shot put is a little gnome in a cauldron. So one of the things that I'd really like to do next year, and as you know, or hopefully you know, the Olympics are in London next year. We're a British company and we're very proud of it, and we'd really like to do some stuff to do with the Olympics next year. But I don't really want to do it in a traditional kind of way. I want to do it in a RuneScape-y way. There are different ways you can approach that. You can look at things from an avatar level, and you can say, okay, you've got 99 ranging, so therefore you've got to be good at the javelin throw, right? But of course you can look at it a different way. You can think about user skill. You can think about you, the people that are actually there, the other side of the monitor, and what your skill levels are. So I'd like to come up with a whole load of different events and different games where you can win gold medals, silver medals, bronze medals, but all different versions of things in the Olympic Games, but just a bit more RuneScape-y. So I was thinking about the cycling. You know, cycling's a bit strange, and they have these team sports where they're all cycling at the same time, but they're trying to catch up with each other, and it's kind of like a weird kind of relay race. So imagine if you were on the back of a battle tortoise when you were doing that. How cool would that be? So you've got a bunch of people on battle tortoises all running around the track, handing a baton over to each other, you know, watching their speed or trying to work out how much energy they've consumed as they're running around the track. That's the kind of thing that I'd really like to do. Of course, javelin throwing would be a lot of fun, but I prefer the idea of kind of aiming at a goblin who's like running around on the track. So, you know, distance is important, but penetration of goblin, you know? How far can you stick that javelin through your goblin? Is he embedded to the floor? Can he move or not? That kind of thing. That's really what I'd like to do. What about something like rhythmic gymnastics or something like that, you know? A bit crazy, people sort of chucking ribbons in the air. What if that wasn't a ribbon? What if it was an abyssal whip? What if I'm like lobbing an abyssal whip and I'm doing tricks? And all those kind of things. And I'm earning XP for it as well. Big medal ceremonies at the end, people with gold medals, silver medals, you know, make people famous in the community. So that's my first kind of idea. That's the RuneScape Olympics. And we'd really like to do that throughout the period of the Olympic Games next year. Next one, it's a big one. You guys have been talking to me about this all weekend. You're all saying, yeah, I'm really pleased that you bought the Wilderness back, and yeah, it's good fun, but you know what? I kind of like that Bounty Hunter thing, you know? Bounty Hunter was a lot of fun. There was some weirdness to it, the whole 76k thing, not really my kind of cup of tea, but I really liked the idea of people being given targets. I really liked the kind of safety net that you got when you picked up the loot. You got a little bit of time that you could run away. You know, a lot of people have talked about pile jumping, and a lot of people have said, yeah, maybe it's not my kind of cup of tea. I love the wilderness, but pile jumping, maybe not for me. So we're just going to have a quick look. So, imagine you're playing a game of Bounty Hunter. Imagine you've got your target and you've slayed all the things that you were told to slay, and the clouds open. And down from the gods you are delivered the most powerful weapon you have ever seen. The most powerful weapon that anyone could ever wield. If you're a warrior, you might be given something like this. Some kind of sword, some kind of epic weapon that drops from the gods and falls on the floor, a bit like Excalibur, you know, you all know King Arthur. You've drawn this sword and you are now an epically powerful warrior. You can swing your sword around, you can kill loads of people that are around you, but of course, they want your sword. Because they want to be the ones to hold the weapon of destruction when you're done with it. So you go around, killing a whole load of people, picking up their loot, and you've got a safety net. This is what I like to do. When you die, you're removed from the area with all your equipment and everything that you had, but you drop the sword on the floor. Of course, it might not be a sword, because the person that killed you might be a mage. It might be a mage who wants an ultimate staff of power. Or there might be a ranger who wants a really powerful bow and a bunch of, you know, infinite ammo that's going to decimate the warriors that they face. I really like that kind of idea. The most powerful weapons delivered by the gods themselves. So that's my idea for Bounty Hunter. So the next thing we're going to look at, this is an in-game screenshot of the Slayer dungeon that we're going to be releasing next month. This will be in the behind the scenes that you're going to read, and this Slayer dungeon is focused around magic. The creatures that you'll be fighting in there, incredible creatures which have been designed by Mod Ash, one of my favourite developers. Really, really interesting ideas. The creatures that you can see on the screen at the moment have kind of been grown from mushrooms. They've been grown from a rogue skin weaver, a Ramake skin weaver, I believe we call them. This is a creature from Dungeoneering who's managed to escape from her shackles, and because she's a skin weaver, she likes to craft things out of living material. So she wanders the worlds of RuneScape, finds these crazy mushrooms and says, you know what, I might like to make a little home down here. So this is the first shot that you can see there. This next shot, this is one of the mushroom planes that you'll be interacting with when you're investigating the dungeon. One of the really cool things you can just see on the corner of the screen there are the kind of branches of the mushrooms going down. The sense of depth and perspective in this area is absolutely amazing. The drops, obviously you're interested in drops. We're looking at some interesting things to do with PKing, specifically food and healing. We're also looking at providing some of the most defensive magic equipment that's available. We're not necessarily going to try and compete with the offensive equipment that we currently have in the game, so don't run off and immediately sell all your cool magic gear. This is designed around defensive statistics and keeping mages alive for a little bit longer. The third screenshot you can see here, you can just see in the corner of the screen the little chap who runs the shop. Really interesting character. I urge you to go and chat with him when we launch the game, and you can see a little bit more of the kind of creatures that are around. Some of the gameplay that we will be toying with there is quite exciting. The concept of creatures charging you and rushing you and doing various different things, you know, just in case you're a ranger who's trying to safe spot behind a mushroom, because I know you love doing that. There'll be plenty of mushrooms down here to do that, but of course the creatures might have something else to say about it. Okay, what's next? Okay, so this is a massive graphical rework that we've currently got planned involving the player kit. Now, as you know, the player kit in the game has been the same for a very long time. What you're actually looking at here is a selection of bronze gear, so really, really early level equipment, which really trying to bring all the equipment up to the standard of the gear that we release with new content, like your toolers and things like that. We really think that we can improve the quality of the stuff that we're doing. I'm just going to get some water, sorry. So that's the bronze gear. Got another one here. So this is the steel equipment. Do you know what? I think that's mine in place. Getting ahead of myself there. As you can see, the type of equipment is kind of changing as you go along. We really want to give the idea to the player that their equipment is growing, their equipment's getting bigger and more powerful and therefore more defensive. It's a little odd sometimes when your bronze and your iron and your steel and your mithril bodies all look pretty similar, they're just a slightly different colour. So we're trying to really work on the idea of the players getting more equipment and bigger and being able to defend themselves better. If you look on the right-hand side of these pictures, that's an actual model that we're working on what the player will look like wearing the gear. The images on the left-hand side of the screen are the kind of concept art that we've based these things from. Next shot, just going up a few levels here. I'm sure you recognise these guys. So this is the Barrows equipment. This is the new look for the Barrows gear. I'm sure this is all very exciting for you. I almost fainted when I saw this. Like I said, this is the kind of concept art that we're doing, but the quality of the modelling that we're producing for our modellers at the moment is really not going to look very different from that. Next shot is amazing. So, hold your breath. Right.
Whoa.
So, I had the pleasure of talking to the guy in Full Dragon just before I came on stage, and I said to him, you look awesome, but you might be out of date in about a year's time. The equipment that you can see on the screen now, that guy again on the right, that is what you're actually going to look like. How cool is that? You'll notice that the Dragon's Kite Shield, you'll notice that the equipment, the Dragon equipment is not on that screen. We're focusing on the armour types to start with. Then we'll be moving on to the weaponry. But like I said, the way that the old parts of the armour haven't really changed doesn't really help us very much in terms of low-level players. But I don't want you to think that I'm going to ignore the high-level players when we do that. We're looking at improving all of the armour types as close together as possible. I wanted to show you the bronze stuff to start with, but that's the Dragon gear, which is quite amazing. Okay, next shot. The next shot I'm going to show you is not the sailing skill. Okay? It might look like the sailing skill, but it's not the sailing skill. This is something which I'm currently calling the player-owned port. Okay. Just on the left-hand side of the screen there, you can see some buildings. I've got a little penguin submarine just poking its head out the corner there. Got the idea of a kind of Deathly Ghost ship on the right. What I'm trying to do with this is something a little bit different. We have a few things in the game which is almost like offline training. When you do things like Throne of Miscellanea, you've got this concept that you've got a whole bunch of people that are working for you and gathering resources for you. Let's just think about it a different way. Let's say you build a port. Let's say you build a few little houses and you're trying to attract different captains to your port. You're trying to attract different kinds of boats. And the reason why you want to do that is because you want to equip them with all the gear, you want to give them the monies that they need, and you want them to go out sailing to find you what we're calling recipes. Now, recipes are going to be something that will allow you to suddenly find rare resources and use those resources to create top-end equipment to the game. And I'm talking about equipment from 85 all the way up to 99. Now, I'm not quite sure how this is going to work. This is a really, really early idea in my mind, and I'm sure there's all sorts of developers breaking in their boots thinking, how the hell are we going to do something like that? But again, this is a little journey inside my brain. These are the kind of things I'm thinking about. I really like the idea of you having a group of people that you're looking after. I like the idea of you paying these captains to attract different sorts of crewmates. I like the idea of you saying, okay, well, I'm going to give you lots of money, so you can go off adventuring all over the place, and you're going to be able to tell me where I can find these rare resources, or you're going to be able to bring these rare resources back to me so I can use my finishing skills to create some awesome equipment. I'm not going to show you any pictures of the awesome equipment we're going to make, but I just showed you all that cool bounty hunter stuff, so hopefully that should be enough. Next, big question mark. Okay, dungeoneering, most of you know, is something very close to my heart. Dungeoneering has an amazing storyline attached to it. Revamp and what he's doing digging south. Now, those of you that have read all of the stories to do with all the different notes that you can find in dungeoneering might know a little bit more about what Bilrock's trying to do. But let's just say there's an incredibly, incredibly powerful force at the bottom of that dungeon. And there's a reason why he's there. A very, very good reason. Now, the sagas that we've developed recently, these kind of bite-sized bits of story that you can find within dungeoneering, ultimately those sagas are going to introduce you to floor 61. And floor 61 is where this powerful force is. Anyone got an idea who that might be? Who? Zaros? Maybe anyone else beginning with Z? Well, Zezima? I might PM him and see if he's up for that. You know, that might explain where he's been, actually. I heard that he was off playing funnel, but apparently he seems to be stuck at the bottom of dungeoneering. So we're really trying to do some interesting things with the sagas. The kind of storytelling that we can do with the sagas is very different to the things that we can do on the surface world. And some of you might have had the honour of meeting Skaldron down in the dungeons over the weekend. Skaldron's got this really kind of unique gift. He can tell the stories of the people that got involved with dungeoneering. He can tell the stories of the people that built it in the first place. He can tell the stories of the forces that have opened the dungeons. And he can tell the story of why the dungeon was built in the first place. And he can take you to the end. Now, the way that we do the sagas, we've got this kind of idea of abridged and unabridged versions. So you'll be able to complete the sagas and play through them for fun, low level, and not get the rewards. Or, if you're level 120 dungeoneering, you'll be able to do it and get the full rewards that would be associated with it. So that's what we're trying to do with the sagas. I'm just going to turn my page. Okay, when I was picking the updates that I really wanted to talk about, I'm just going to get rid of that. It looks funny. When I was talking about picking what content I wanted to show you guys, I know that a lot of you are proper old school. And you have fond memories of the creatures that you were killing a few years ago. So I've tried to come up with some ideas, and the concept art we're going to look at now is awesome. I've tried to come up with some ideas to do with the creatures that you killed when when you were first playing the game. So this is the Kalphite King. So, you might be able to read some of the notes we left scribbled on the side there. Thanks very much, Jan, for coming up with this awesome concept. The idea of the Kalphite King is that he is an old, bloated creature. You might actually be able to see there, he's kind of half erupting. You know, in the way that the Queen kind of starts as a certain form and then erupts as a kind of weird, fuzzy bee that throws things at you. This kind of in sort of mid-state almost. His wings have atrophied. You know, he's been down there for a long time. He's an incredibly powerful beast. Now, you might have thought that the Kalphite Queen was all that was down there, but there's a few little cave entrances that we can open, which will take you to the Kalphite King. So this creature, as you can see, we're talking about poisonous stingers. We're talking about all sorts of different ideas and different strategies that this creature can use. The idea of smaller minions protecting it. There's all sorts of different ideas that we're thinking about at the moment. I'm not really thinking the idea of a kill count. I think that we've used that quite a lot in God Wars, but I'm sure that we can come up with some cool ideas, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. That's an awesome piece of concept art. But maybe you might find the next one slightly more awesome. That is the Queen Black Dragon. Now the Queen Black Dragon has been stuck for even longer than the Kalphite Queen. I'm a big fan of films like Aliens. I really like the idea of these big mothers which have given birth to all these creatures and they're old and they're down there and they're sort of stuck to these egg tubes. And you know, we're always trying to be inspired by cool kind of ideas. There's lots of different films and things that have kind of tried to use this kind of idea before. But I really like the idea of this kind of old dragon stuck down there. Now, the Dragon King, obviously, have created most of the dragons that you see in the game. Some of them are quite old, some of them can talk to you, some of them are quite clever. This thing will be nothing like you've ever met before. So, that is the Queen Black Dragon. Like I said, this is just a snippet of the things that we want to do next year. I've told a lot of you in some of the sessions that we've done this weekend that we're really committed to reworking the early contents of the game, and we're really committed to reshaping the way that skills work. I told you that we're not working on a new skill at the moment because we've got teams of people that invested in making the game that we've got at the moment work properly. And that means the content that you can do, the level 99s that you've got, will be worth a lot more to you. Like I said, the idea of the player-owned port, that is for people to use those finishing skills, which they've got all the way up to level 99. We talked a bit about smithing over the last few days. I'm really quite looking forward to seeing what we can do with it next year. That's pretty much the stuff that I wanted to show you, the kind of ideas that I've got in my mind. So next, I'd like to talk about behind the scenes. So, behind the scenes, November 2011. Awesome quest. We've got a quest which we're calling One Piercing Note. Now, those of you that were lucky enough to attend some of the storytelling sessions, and I can see the man just back there, that's Mod John A just in the doorway, you might have heard him talking about what we're trying to do with One Piercing Note. As a storyteller, and that's what I am at heart, and we're really lucky with all the different mediums that we have to use in RuneScape. But one of those mediums, which seems to be underused quite a lot, is audio. I'm always looking for immersion. I'm always looking for people to be fully engaged with the content that they're looking at. And those people that turn their audio off aren't necessarily going to get the full experience of what we wanted. So this is, the One Piercing Note is going to be fully voiced. Every character that you meet will talk to you through your speakers. And the entire quest is built around the principle that music makes content better. So we've got this really interesting idea to do with St. Elspeth, who is a kind of a holy force, works for Saradomin, and she's got this beautiful monastery which is built just on the outside of our grid, just the other side of the desert worlds, I think, just around there. The levels for the quest are going to be very low. We're always interested in providing high-level content, but also we feel that a lot of our low-level content is quite basic, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that the quality of the quests that we can write these days don't really compare to things that we did in the early days, you know, things like Cook's Assistant, those kind of quests that you stumble on when you're really, really low level. So the idea of One Piercing Note is